Fans of Game of Thrones and A Song of Ice and Fire have long speculated about the possibility of a physical confrontation between Jon Snow and Daario Naharis, as well as which one of them Daenerys would choose for her husband if the choice was put before her. Both are formidable warriors with very different fighting styles, backgrounds, and motivations, but their shared connection to Daenerys Targaryen has sparked many debates. Imagine the intensity of a duel between Jon, the brooding and honorable king in the north, if you take into account the show's storyline, wielding his Valyrian steel sword, and Daario, the flamboyant, deadly sellsword with his exotic curved blades. This showdown would pit Jon's experience in fighting supernatural foes against Daario's cunning and ruthlessness in battle. And even beyond the clash of mere steel, which one of these men would be chosen over the other as the love of Daenerys' life? We know that in the show, Daenerys' passion for Daario burned out rather quickly, with her admitting to feeling nothing for him before setting sail for Westeros. But in the books, the last of which was A Dance of Dragons, we know that things are still hot and heavy between Daenerys and Daario, with her not even having met Jon as of yet. And yet a future connection with Jon Snow has been foreshadowed in the books for years in Daenerys' dreams and visions. So at some point, she will have to choose one over the other. But which one will it be? Assuming that Martin's Gardner style of writing could well mean that Dany takes a different path in matters of the heart than the one she chose in the show. By the end of this breakdown, you will see which side we come down on in this debate as to who is the better fighter and who will be the ultimate lover. First, we must measure up both men's skills as fighters. Jon Snow is trained in the martial traditions of House Stark, raised from a young age to fight with sword, spear, and bow. His weapon of choice is Longclaw, a Valyrian steel sword, which gives him an advantage in combat against magical foes like White Walkers. But early on in the books, when he has a fight with Quarren Halfhand, he realizes how lacking his fighting skills are compared to Quarren's, who Jon realizes could have quite easily killed him. In the fight he sets up to convince the wildlings Jon has turned on the Watch. Jon knows he's just a green boy of the Watch compared with skilled, super tough veterans of the Watch like Quarren Halfhand. And so he begins a rigorous training program to see him level up his fighting skills. These skills are put to the test when he matches blades and fists with Rattleshirt, who is really Mance Rayder in disguise, a storyline the show opted out of taking. Despite his training and seeking continual improvement, he is overmatched by Rattlemance, who understandably is the superior warrior, having fought his way into the kingship over all the other wildling tribes. But despite the drubbing Jon takes here at Mance's hands, Jon is adamant that he will train until he closes the gap between them. Jon's battle experience is not extensive in the books, as his only battle in the books is the battle at the Wall against wildling raiders. But during that battle, Jon Snow's resiliency and leadership carries the day, even as other, more senior members of the Night's Watch are slain in the battle. But Jon enjoys another rare advantage, and that is his berserker strength, which has been glimpsed more than once in the books, but was only displayed in the show in the scene where he bludgeoned Ramsay Bolton to a pulp after the Battle of the Bastards. When Sir Alliser Thorne insults Ned Stark after being accused of treason, Jon loses his temper and attacks him, having to be restrained by 4 of his friends from doing serious harm to Sir Alliser. During a sword sparring session with Iron Emmett, Jon loses control and batters Emmett to the ground, having to be pulled off by Night's Watchman Halder and Horse. There is yet another confrontation with Alliser Thorne, where he grabs Jon Snow by the arm and Jon Snow forcefully lifts him off his feet by grabbing him by the throat, again having to be restrained by multiple other members of the Night's Watch. There are a few other instances that may show Jon Snow using extreme strength, but those scenes are a bit more ambiguous as to whether he is doing so. But it can be seen that despite his relative inexperience in battle and his young age, that Jon Snow is already become a supremely formidable warrior. Indeed, if you combine his extreme training regimen with this berserker strength hidden within you, you can see why he may become the legendary last hero, able to go toe-to-toe with the others, who made a mockery of the young Lord Royce, trained by his father, one of the greatest swordsmen in the Westeros, when he went up against a White Walker warrior. But when he come to the character of Daario, we can see his qualities as a warrior are not to be denied. On the show, he is shown to be a superbly excellent killer, from personally killing his 3 captains for opposing Daenerys to effortlessly defeating the Meereenese champion outside the city gates. Indeed, comparing the show to the books, he is shown to be far more formidable on the show than in the books, being a supremely confident and skilled fighter in the live-action version. Being a Tyroshi, Daario is a highly skilled sellsword who uses unconventional, flamboyant methods of fighting. His fighting style is described as unorthodox but deadly, often utilizing curved blades like the arach and a dagger, making him a fast and agile opponent. Daario has vast experience as a commander and mercenary, often facing tough odds. He has survived countless battles in the company of the Second Sons, a notorious sellsword company. His ruthlessness in combat and willingness to employ underhanded tactics make him a dangerous foe. Daario also knows how to exploit his charm to manipulate situations in his favor. We can see that as mercenary in the violent land of Essos. The book Daario is far more battle-hardened and experienced at killing than Jon Snow, who is still, basically, a green boy in the Watch, despite his adventures among the wildlings. Daario can be said to have more of that tough, killer's edge to him, an attribute that attracts Daenerys and yet vexes her to no end. And being a captain of the Second Sons mercenary company certainly means he is extremely capable in battle, having risen up so high in the ranks of that famed mercenary company. But unless we combine the show with the books, Daario does not have a single contest of arms that we can say definitively proves his skill with the blade. Indeed, in one-on-one combat, Jon has fought or sparred with more names of note than anything we've seen from Daario. So at this point, we can definitely say that Jon, even with his lack of battle experience, would defeat Daario in a fair, one-on-one contest. Now, it would be a more difficult mountain to climb if Daario was as skilled at ranged weaponry as the show version, and if he was simply looking to kill Jon Snow rather than win a one-on-one contest. For show, Daario had extreme skill with killing his foes with thrown weaponry from a distance. But barring that, nothing we've seen from Book Daario proves he could go the distance with Jon Snow. So Daario loses to Lord Snow big time. His mercenary skills no match for the blood of the wolf and the dragon. Now, we come to the question of who Daenerys would choose if she had to. Show Daario certainly enjoyed more screen time and intimate moments with Daenerys than we saw between her and Jon Snow in Season 7 and Season 8. There was certainly more fun in Daario's courtship of Daenerys than we saw between Jon and Dany in Season 7, and they have deep discussions concerning Dany's governance of Meereen late at night in a very intimate setting in Season 5. We never saw any scenes like this from Jon and Daenerys in Season 8. All we had to build the Jon-Dany romance was Game of Thrones Season 7 boat sex scene, a couple of aborted makeout sessions, and one dragon date in Season 8, before Daenerys met her tragic end at Jon's hands. Not much to build an epic romance taking place amid a great warrior against an ancient, apocalyptic winter threat. Yet, by the end of Season 6, Daario, a man seduced by Dany, and in turn seduced by him, and a man who risked life and limb to rescue her from the Khals, is less than an afterthought. She admits that she looked upon Daario, a man who obviously still loved her, and felt nothing for him. But the books follow a different trajectory. Dany and Daario have a torrid love affair. Drawn by his roguish handsomeness and willingness to break the rules, Daenerys and Daario develop a relationship that can only be described as a whirlwind, one that is quite passionate and described quite graphically and in great detail by George R.R. Martin. It at no point cools off, but rather runs hot the entire time, fueled by a heady combination of lust, desire, jealousy, anger, with quite a bit of angst thrown in. Daario takes full advantage of his favor with Dany, from flaunting her authority over him to embarrassing her in front of her whole court by seeking to make out with her. In fact, Daenerys finally asserts herself and makes the decision to send Daario away as a hostage and to marry Hizdahr Dolorak because she knows he is bad for her and has too much of a hold over her. At no point is she ever ice-cold concerning her Tyroshi love. Daenerys, meanwhile, is torn between her political responsibilities as Queen of Meereen and her personal desires. Daario's confident, swaggering nature excites her, and she finds herself unable to resist his advances, even though she knows that a relationship with him could be dangerous for her rule. Their relationship is marked by a fiery physical attraction, with Daario often telling Daenerys how he dreams of her, and Daenerys enjoying the freedom and passion that she feels when they are together. However, their affair is also fraught with tension. Daario's unpredictability, his violent tendencies, and his willingness to kill without hesitation worry Daenerys. She knows that he is not the kind of man she can trust to rule by her side or to serve her vision for a better world. Yet, despite these concerns, she continues to seek comfort and solace in him, particularly as she struggles with the many challenges of ruling Meereen. Ultimately, Daenerys recognizes that her relationship with Daario may be a distraction from her greater purpose. Their passionate affair, while intense and exhilarating, is also a reflection of Daenerys's internal conflict between her personal desires and her duties as a queen. The affair stands as a temporary escape for Daenerys, but one that she finally decides to start to curb by sending Daario away. But Jon and Daenerys have never met in the books. Indeed, at this point in the long-delayed saga of Ice and Fire, their meeting is nowhere in sight. But in spite of the physical distance between them, a future romance has been teased between them as far away back as the first book. Now let's take a look at some of these foreshadowings. In the first book, Daenerys thinks about if Rhaegar's son had lived, they would have been of a perfect age to each other when it came time to be married. In the House of the Undying in A Clash of Kings, Daenerys has a vision of a blue rose growing form a chink in a wall of ice, filling the air with sweetness. Now the blue rose is what was given to Lyanna by Rhaegar when he crowned her the King of Love and Beauty at the tourney in Harrenhal, with the ultimate symbolism of the passage representing Jon's character growing from that love between the two and living a life of duty to Wall. And Daenerys finds it sweet because it will enrich her life in some incredible way as yet to be seen. Also, in A Clash of Kings, while sailing to Qarth, Dany has a dream of a mysterious lover whose face she cannot yet make out in the shadows, but one who is definitely young and comely of shape. The future yet hides this lover from her, but she knows there is a lover that unlike any she has met. Now keep in mind that this happens before she has met Daario, and after being in a relationship with him for some time, she never confirms that he is this mysterious stranger. Even in the first book, Daenerys describes Khal Drogo, her first love's face, as one that doesn't often betray the thoughts within, and Tyrion describes Jon's face as one that gives away nothing. Perhaps too much is made of this one, but even in the show, Daenerys puts Jon and Drogo on the same pedestal of the loves of her life, for which Daario does not even get an honorable mention. Indeed, when Jon is stabbed in a dance with dragons, Daenerys hears a wolf howl that made her feel sad and lonely. Lastly, while Jon lays with Ygritte and Dany lies with Daario, they both feel alone, isolated in some profound way from their respective lovers, which one could assume points to the fact that the only true home they will have is with each other. Some could argue that while some of this foreshadowing is solid, others could perhaps reading too much into certain passages in order to justify their view that there will be a Jon and Dany romance, like in the show. We will not engage in that debate here, but will rather say that at least some of these passages provide a firm foundation for a Jon Snow and Daenerys hookup in the Winds of Winter. So who will choose as her ultimate lover? Well, it's simple really. Despite the fiery nights Daenerys has shared with the mercenary captain, Daenerys has already made the choice, having sent Daario away as a hostage. Even though engaged in a passionate storm of a relationship with the colorful captain, she still made the decision to distance herself from the toxic influence in her life. With the Masters bringing their armies to war against Meereen, and with Victarion sailing in with his dragon horn, it could easily be seen why Daario most likely won't survive the war for Meereen. And while she has yet to meet Jon, except in dreams and visions, we can assume she will be drawn to him for the same reason she was in the show. Jon's deep sense of loyalty and honor align with Daenerys' idealistic vision of what a ruler should be. His commitment to duty and willingness to put his own body on the line to protect those he loves put him on display as the best of men. Jon's reserved yet intense personality could provide Daenerys with the emotional connection she longs for, beyond merely physical attraction that she feels for Daario or the political convenience she married Hizdahr for. Indeed, we surmise that Jon's relationship with Daenerys Stormborn will be filled with the same dangerous passion she shares with Daario as their strong personalities clash, yet also be tempered by some of the cold political realities that she married Hizdahr for. A perfect amalgam of the two. Jon will no doubt return as a darker, edgier version of himself after his resurrection. A version that will excite Daenerys and yet be balanced by the icy cold of will required by a Lord Commander of the Wall. So in the end, Daario would get them hands from Jon Snow in a fight and get booted out of Daenerys' bed to make room for her, one true king. Facts.